From the 1930s through the 1970s, Disney Animation was one of the most successful movie studios in existence, but after a series of missteps, underperformers, and the inability to prepare for the future, they were suddenly in free fall. Sometimes the bottom is further down than you think, and it's not always easy to point to the exact moment you hit it, but in this case, we can give it a name. Hi, I'm Dan Larson, and this is the history of the Black Cauldron. Thank you to Marcom for sponsoring this video. Try Marcom Gather for free today at marcomcentral.com/toygalaxy and use the promo code toygalaxy to get 25% off your first year. Stop wasting time searching for files in cluttered, confusing cloud storage. Marcom Gather is a fully featured digital asset management solution that does the hard work for you, helping you organize items visually for a more intuitive experience. Marcom Gather auto-tags assets using artificial intelligence, or AI, the good kind, not the killer robot kind. Upload and organize in a single step, resize and convert files on the fly. Put a time limit on your files with an expiration date so you don't have old files popping up when trying to get the new stuff out there. Sort, search, share, all the things you do now, simpler and faster so every team member can take back their valuable time. Try it free at marcomcentral.com/toygalaxy and use the promo code toygalaxy for 25% off your first year. Again, that's marcomcentral.com/toygalaxy, and thank you again to Marcom for sponsoring this video. The Black Cauldron is an animated feature film produced by Disney and released to theaters in 1985. It was Disney's 25th animated feature film, and it was almost the last. Plenty of blame to go around when it costs $44 million to make $22 million. Some pig keepers are content with life as it is, but not assistant pig keeper Taran. Taran wants to leave the life of pig keeping behind to become a great warrior. His mentor Dalbin, who is a bit of a magic user himself, would prefer that Taran be mindful of the present and focus on the task of keeping Dalbin's very special pig, Henwen. Henwen is some pig with supernatural powers to divine the future when someone near her chants the magic words and she dips her face into a container of liquid. Like a magic 8-ball for finding things, but with a higher success rate and a curly tail. Dalbin has been keeping a lot of secrets from Taran over the years, but those secrets are about to come out because the evil Horned King needs that terrific pig to figure out where the Black Cauldron is. With the magic cauldron, the Horned King will be able to create an army of undead soldiers, the Cauldron-born, to conquer this realm once and for all. Dalbin instructs Taran to take Henwen to a safer place, and that's when fate intervenes. The Horned King's evil dragon creatures steal the pig, kicking off the adventure of a lifetime. Taran will team up with the lovable forest creature Gurgi, the daring princess Elan Wee, and the hapless bard Fluter in a tale of swords and sorcery to save the world, to save the pig, to find the Black Cauldron. The Black Cauldron was very loosely based on a series of 5 award-winning novels written by Lloyd Alexander, published between 1964 and 1968. Disney first optioned the movie rights shortly thereafter in 1971 and began production on the movie in 1973. Disney's adaptation of The Black Cauldron was originally scheduled to be released in 1980. 9 years seems like a long time to go between optioning the rights and putting butts in seats, but that's how it is when you're playing the long game, lining up future projects. For instance, Disney acquired the rights for 1963's The Sword and the Stone all the way back in 1939. That's 24 years. And not for nothing, but Disney Animation already had several movies in production. Robin Hood was released in 1973, and 2 more films, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh and The Rescuers, were already scheduled for 1977. There's only so many animators that can work on all these projects. And Disney only had so many animators because 1959's Sleeping Beauty and the rest of their productions that year did so poorly at the box office that there were mass layoffs throughout the animation department. Disney was already working with a staff that was aging out, and they hadn't taken the necessary steps to prepare the next generation. The Black Cauldron went into production at a time when Disney was trying to rebuild their ranks. The 9 old men, the core of 9 master animators who had been with Disney since the 1930s, had either retired or were about to. Don Bluth was one of the few animators who had trained with the 9 old men, earning the title of directing animator. He was prepared to take charge and steer the ship if only Disney would let him. Bluth had assembled his own team of young, hungry animators that were ready to step up, that wanted to be the next generation of Disney animation. Ron Miller, the studio chief, and coincidentally, Walt Disney's son-in-law, had concerns about the young animation staff and whether or not they were up to the task of Black Cauldron. The previous decade of films had focused on talking animals. Did these kids have enough experience animating people, which was what Black Cauldron was going to require? As 1980 approached, it was clear the Black Cauldron was not going to be the priority. Bluth worked on 1981's The Fox and the Hound, but decided to bet on his own team. Frustrated with repeated delays, in 1979, 1 year before the intended release date of Black Cauldron, he and his team of young animators left Disney to start a new studio called Don Bluth Productions. What remained was a studio half the size and even less experienced than before. Fox and the Hound took Black Cauldron's spot and was pushed back a year to 1981 due to the departure of Bluth and his animators. The Black Cauldron was put on the back burner. Disney had to regroup to find new ways to condense Alexander's 5 novels into one film. Disney began to storyboard the main beats of the film, and veteran screenwriter Rosemary Ann Sisson was brought in to help out with the script. Directing duties that were originally given to John Musker were taken back once production ended on The Fox and the Hound. Musker's direction was thought to be too comedic in focus, so Art Stevens, Richard Rich, Ted Berman, and Dave Michener took over once their obligations to Fox and the Hound were completed. But that's
too many cooks, too many cooks, too many cooks.
So Joe Hale was brought in to act as producer and figure out the recipe for this stew. Rich and Berman took the lead, and production officially began again in 1981. Notable timing because Don Bluth Studios was already in production on their first feature film, The Secret of NIMH, due out in 1982. Step 1. Clear the deck of what was already there and already not working. Sorry, young conceptual artist Tim Burton, you'll catch a break elsewhere. The team once again tried to distill 5 books of Newbery Award-winning storytelling into one 90-minute film. Disney had a good reputation for delivering entertaining films based on pre-existing literature, but they had a bad reputation for the changes made to that pre-existing literature and the subsequent perception that it was a creation in totality of Disney. Many critics have gone so far as to suggest that Disney's adaptations lessened the literary importance of the source material, that the commercialization robbed the characters and their stories of their true value. It would not have been out of line to worry that the Horned King might sing and that the Black Cauldron might dance. Producer Hale wasn't going to go that far with it, but a lot of cuts had to be made. This wasn't going to be a trilogy, and even if it were, characters would still have to be changed and important narrative beats removed. The changes that were made were enough for Rosemary Ann Sisson to agree to disagree and leave the project.
Now, the movie Roger Ebert calls a rip-roaring tale of swords, sorcery, and magic can be yours to own for the very first time.
I've got to have it.
The Black Cauldron, Disney's 25th animated masterpiece, is coming to video for a limited time only.
It's our only chance.
Share this timeless classic with your family. It's the fantastic, enchanted adventure you'll want to add to your Disney collection. Own The Black Cauldron, rated PG, now in collectible Chromium FX packaging.
On the technical side of things, this was a post-Star Wars era of animation. Disney was trying to maintain its reputation as an innovator in cinema, pioneering new techniques and creating never-before-seen spectacle. Heck, at the other end of the building, they were making Tron. The Black Cauldron was going to get all the bells and whistles, including some they were still working out. 70mm widescreen aspect ratio, 6-track Dolby sound, computer animation, and holographic cauldron-born skeleton warriors projected into the theater. We're still working that last one out. But the pressures of invested time and sunk costs took its toll on the producers, the studio, and the young animation team trying to fabricate decades of experience from thin air. Things got overlooked. The 70mm widescreen charts the artists used to properly format the frame were the wrong size. There were things that were beyond their control, like the 10-week animator strike in 1982. And there were things that could have been avoided. Computer-generated imagery was still in its infancy. The Black Cauldron is Disney's first animated feature to use CG for fire, for bubbles, for a boat, for Elanwee's magic orb, for the cauldron itself. Unlike today, it wasn't the cheaper alternative at the time. And not for nothing, but a lot of time and effort was put into developing a holographic projector that would work in a normal movie theater. It's 2022 and Disney still hasn't figured that out. Probably didn't need it for the Black Cauldron. The biggest blow to the production came in 1984. With the movie essentially finished, Ron Miller was ousted from his role as president of Walt Disney Productions. Walt's nephew Roy E. Disney and his partners replaced Miller with Michael Eisner. Eisner tapped Jeffrey Katzenberg to be the new studio head for Disney Animation. Together, Eisner and Katzenberg had about zero interest in animation and were prepared to eliminate it altogether. But first, they needed to see what exactly they were about to release as the first animated feature under new management. They pulled a rough cut of the film and held a private screening. It did not go well. Spoiler alert, the Horned King succeeds in acquiring the Black Cauldron and is able to create his army of undead soldiers, the Cauldron Born. It was depicted rather gruesomely, and apparently too gruesomely for those in attendance for the screening. Katzenberg leapt into action, ordering that the film be shortened and that the intensity of the horror, especially the Cauldron-born sequence, be turned down. It was at like 10. He wanted it down here at like 1.5, to which producer Joe Hale countered, "No, the movie is done." Katzenberg, in order to establish dominance, took the film into the editing room and started cutting it himself. Eisner got involved and was able to turn the heat down. But Katzenberg still got his way.
I warned you! I tell you!
Black Cauldron was delayed once again from Christmas 1984 to summer of 1985 so that the actual finished film could once again be recut for time, tone, and pacing. The result was nearly 15 minutes shorter, which required some rewrites, reanimation, rescoring, and re-editing. The biggest losers were the violence and horror themes. Some accounts suggest that there were shots of straight decapitations and detorsoing as the undead army came to life and began to attack. Ultimately a necessary move, if for no other reason than the original cut would likely have merited the first ever R rating for a Disney animated feature, or a newly minted PG-13 at the least. Ratings that would have killed the box office before the projector started rolling. What they got was a PG, the first ever PG for a Disney animated feature. That original version has never been seen outside of the people that worked on the film or attended that first private screening. The 1985 VHS release of Pinocchio included an early trailer for The Black Cauldron, which shows a few moments from the longer unmodified Cauldron-born sequence. Some individual cells have turned up at auction over the years, but no full clips. It is possible that the original cut exists somewhere in the Disney archives. Rumor has it that producer Joe Hale has a black and white copy, but as of this video, nothing has surfaced nearly 40 years later. The Black Cauldron opened July 24th, 1985, 5 years after its original scheduled opening date, 3 years after Don Bluth's The Secret of Nim. Some accounts suggest that the initial $15 million budget landed somewhere closer to $44 million, nearly 4 times the previous most expensive budget for a Disney animated film, and it only brought in $22 million. That's a loss of $22 million, creating a cascading effect through Disney Animation that nearly resulted in the closure of the animation studio. The Black Cauldron made a third less than the Care Bears movie, which opened the same year. The Care Bears movie, which made $34 million against a budget of only $2 million, based on stuffed animals created by a greeting card company. If the financial loss didn't make The Black Cauldron the film that almost killed Disney, the professional embarrassment should have. New management wasn't excited about inheriting a film that they had no hand in creating. Unable to reshape it into something they were satisfied with, the film was begrudgingly released with minimal marketing support. That said, there were licensing opportunities. Sierra Online released a computer game inspired by The Black Cauldron. Similar to King's Quest, it was one of only a handful of games developed by Sierra to be based on a movie. There were activity books, coloring books, storybooks, cereal prizes, plush toys, puzzles, the kinds of things that would normally be associated with a Disney animated film targeting young children. Conspicuously absent at the time of release or in the decade plus following was any kind of home media representation. Given the box office performance or lack thereof, it was not a priority. In 1984, Disney started a line of home releases called Walt Disney Classics, whereby they would re-release films that hadn't been in theaters for decades in some cases. Robin Hood in 84, then Pinocchio both theatrically and on home media in 85, it marked a shift in Disney's approach to their classic library, a home video release tied to the return to theaters. The schedule of re-releases and home media releases tied to new films meant that it could be years before The Black Cauldron was made available. It wasn't until 1998, 13 years after its original release in theaters, that The Black Cauldron could finally be viewed for some for only the second time, for many, the first time. Like the other classic films, it is likely that The Black Cauldron was also supposed to be. What happened there? I lost my top end. Like the other classic films, it is likely that Black Cauldron was also supposed to be re-released to theaters around 1990. There is ample evidence that Disney at least attempted to test a G and PG rated cut of the film retitled as both The Magic Cauldron and Terran and the Magic Cauldron. There's a commercial featuring the rebranding and lots of merchandise that can easily be found through a Google or eBay search. It is likely that the Terran and the Magic Cauldron branded version was more widely released internationally than it was in the US, but none of the test releases convinced Disney to proceed with either the full theatrical re-release or the home media release until several years later. After the 1998 VHS release, a DVD release followed in 2000, restoring it to widescreen framing. In 2019, it was released in 4K for the launch of Disney+, and in 2021, it was released on Blu-ray exclusively through the Disney Movie Club. The Black Cauldron was unique among Disney animation features up to that point, with a soundtrack that featured no songs. Music, yes, but nothing to sing along to. The score was composed by Elmer Bernstein, hot off 1983's Trading Places and 1984's Ghostbusters. Due to the major last-minute edits to the film, a substantial amount of Bernstein music is cut from the film as well. The soundtrack was released in 1985 and then re-released in 2012 with new expanded tracks and remastering. Lots of other Black Cauldron merchandise has been released over the years as Disney has embraced the value in the brand and the fans that love it despite its flaws. Gurgi showed up in a line of Happy Meal premiums tied to the Disney classics in the 90s. There are Funko Pops, Sideshow collectibles, pins, stickers, shirts, trading cards, figurines. You can even get a Black Cauldron 35th anniversary magic band. In 2020, talk began to circulate on the web about a potential live-action remake in the works at Disney. It is plausible considering the trend of Disney remaking its animated films as live-action features that have sucked all of the life and energy from them. A virtual cauldron born of their own library of films. But Black Cauldron could be uniquely positioned to take advantage of the shift to live action if Disney were to give it the resources and runtime it would need to do justice to the 5 novels originally written by Lloyd Alexander. The rumors are from 2020 and we were unable to find any significant news since. Is it a bad movie? No, not really. It's fine. As good as the best episodes of Gummy Bears. Lloyd Alexander himself saw the movie and said, "Purely as a movie, I found it to be very enjoyable. I had fun watching it." But he did continue that there is no resemblance between the movie and the book. What I would hope is that anyone who sees the movie would certainly enjoy it, but I'd also hope that they'd actually read the book. The book is quite different. It's a very powerful, very moving story, and I think people would find a lot more depth in the book. For Disney, it represented a point where the old ways came to an end and set the foundation for the new era. The failure of Black Cauldron gave Roy E. Disney, Michael Eisner, and Jeffrey Katzenberg the freedom to completely make over the animation studio and practices at Disney. This led directly to the successes that began with The Little Mermaid in 1989 and powered Disney through the 90s with Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and The Lion King. Movies that today are powering them through the 2020s with soulless, unimaginative live-action remakes. That is the true lasting magic, the never-ending curse of the Black Cauldron. Oh, we got plenty of time. I can stretch this out. I'm Phil. Thanks for watching. Please hit like, hit subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Thank you very much to those of you who already are. Check us out on Twitch at twitch.tv/toygalaxy if you're in the position to help the channel grow. If you would like early access to the videos ad-free, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/toygalaxy. Let us know in the comments down below if you're a fan of the Black Cauldron. Did you see it in theaters? Did you see it on VHS in the 90s? Do you own the Blu-ray? Or are you like my wife Kate, who doesn't mind the movie but is such a fan of the books that there's no way Disney's Gurgi could ever be her Gurgi? Hashtag not my Gurgi.
Cut!